right. And it is 12:30, so I want to thank all of you for joining and participating in our session today. This is the second session, Lunch and Learn for 2026. We will have four more after the summer, so there will be more sessions coming up. And if you're wondering why we decided on the topic, and it is because a lot of us are using digital tools. A lot of us have many, many, many different logins to get into our accounts. And very often it can get very confusing, even with the vocabulary. What's a password? What's a PIN? What's a passkey? So the goal today is to kind of demystify some of those topics and also chat about and offer you some tips for going forward. Now, again, as I said, I will be posting the link to the slides in our Zoom chat, just so you have access to it. And then after the session, we will be sharing with you the slides and the recording in a follow-up email. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat as well. I can see some of you are joining in and happy that you're able to get in, so that's fantastic. Now, if you're joining us for the first time, just quick introductions for me and Alan. My name is Monica, and I'm curious about technology, excited about technology, but sometimes also overwhelmed. So things can be very, very exciting and thrilling, and then can be very disappointing. But I'm always looking forward to learning about technology. I just love it. I have been with AlphaPlus for over 20 years. Alan as well. I'm not sure if he's going to mention that, but we both have been working in the field for a while. And at AlphaPlus, I focus on tech coaching, training, and workshops. So very often you will see me on Zoom doing workshops and training sessions, doing coaching activities, and visiting the programs. And I'll hand it over to Alan to introduce himself.
Thanks, Monica. I'm Alan Cherinsky. I'm the executive director of AlphaPlus. I work as part of a small but highly dedicated team of only four people, developing practical supports for navigating the growing impact of digital technology on adult learning, particularly reading and writing. I also provide free cybersecurity awareness training to get set programs for staff and teachers. So if you're interested in me offering you those webinars, just reach out to me and I'm happy to arrange some dates with you. Thanks, Monica.
Thank you, Alan. We really appreciate it. And then we will mention the cybersecurity one more time closer to the end to remind you that this is, again, 30-minute session. So we may not be able to cover everything, but you can always reach out to us with more questions. Now, the Lunch and Learn sessions are only 30 minutes. So you will see us going through the topic fairly quickly. And it really is to kind of get you to talk about it, to think about it, and to get exposed to some of the tools. And then you can follow up with more questions for us. And then, as I said, because we can't cover everything, these are just highlights, some tools, some tips, some features that we think you may find helpful. And on that note, I'm going to jump right into passwords. Now,
That's,
uh, go ahead, Alan.
is it me? Okay.
No, no,
We're
it's me.
we're
It's
tag we're,
yeah. Go on, go on, go on. Yes,
we're tag teaming.
yes.
Um, a password is how you prove who you are online, and increasingly you'll find that common shared passwords amongst a team are less and less because companies want you to prove you are actually an individual. It's a secret string of characters, letters, numbers, and symbols. It's usually combined with a username to protect private information. In the chat, I wondered if anyone could, or if you would like to, share how many passwords you actually have. I probably have close to 300 passwords that I've recorded over many, many years. Hundreds, five. Wow, five passwords. That's great. Um, Password hygiene is all about habits we follow to keep our account safe. It means creating strong and, very importantly, unique passwords. Reusing passwords is the biggest risk. One breach can affect many accounts. So don't reuse your password. Monica, next slide.
Mhm.
Did you know about 80% of data breaches can be traced back to passwords that are reused or easily guessed? You know, sort of the 1, 2, 3 password. That's why we need to focus on passwords that are long and unique. And it's also why multi-factor authentication, two-factor authentication is so important. We're not talking too much about multi-factor authentication today, but if it's available, you'll be forced to do it for things like your bank and things like that. Use it whenever it's possible. Multi-factor authentication can block almost all automated attacks, even if your password is compromised. It adds an extra layer and it makes a big difference in your security. Next slide, Monica. That's me too. Um, Even a complex 8 character password like this example can be cracked in a few minutes with modern systems. Length matters more than complexity. That looks like a good password, but it wouldn't take very long for a computer to hack that password at all. Next slide, Monica. Passphrases, longer passwords, especially passphrases, expand the number of possibilities dramatically. Here, for example, fold, orbit, keys, denim, spin, just a sort of some words generated by the picture on the right. It looks like a jumble at first glance, but it's built in a way that makes it both memorable and secure. These words don't form a normal sentence or phrase, which makes them harder for AI pattern-based attacks to predict, while still offering something your brain can latch onto. It's also long, over 26 characters, which adds to its strength. Next slide, Monica. Password managers. A password manager is an online service that does one job. It remembers all your passwords so you don't have to. When you sign up, you get access to a secure online vault, a desktop app, a mobile app, a plugin that sits on your web browser, and it fills your passwords automatically. Everything is encrypted and protected with one master password that only you know. The only password you ever need to remember is that one master password. But no tool is without risk. One of the major providers suffered a serious breach in 2022 where the vaults were stolen and were cracked when users had a weak master password. Bitwarden and ProtonPass have starting free versions, a Canadian-owned OnePass, which has accounts for nonprofit, and all three have very clean records. The lesson is simple. Your master password is the most important password you have. Make it long, passphrase if possible, 4 or 5 random words, and do not store it anywhere digitally. Next slide, Monica. And it's
Thank you,
over to
Alan. And
you.
that will be my turn. But just to add a quick note, I had this situation recently where we were in a workshop, a physical workshop. So everybody came to the session with their laptops, and we had a few participants who opened the laptop, and then right on it was a sticky note with the password to get into the accounts. So it was very interesting to sort of see somebody have the password available right there. If the bag with the laptop gets stolen, immediately the access to that device gets stolen as well, and it's right there in front of them with a sticky note. So, as Alan said, passwords, pins, anything we are using to get into our devices, please don't keep them together. Kind of at least put them in a wallet or somewhere else where they are kind of separated from each other at that point. But with that note, let's talk about pins. And I'm going to admit sometimes when we talk about passwords, passkeys, passphrases, it gets complicated and confusing. So even with pins, it was a bit harder to kind of figure out what does it mean and why are we using those. So a pin, which is a personal identification number, it basically is a short code or number we are using, and we are all used to them. We use them at banking machines. We use them very often on our devices as well, and it can be on a phone, a tablet, or a laptop as well. It really looks like a password, but it's kind of working differently. So when the main type of PIN is being used, it actually is saved only on your device. Passwords, you are using internet, it has to kind of access the information, but pins are saved on your device. So when you're putting in your PIN, it doesn't have to travel through the internet, and somebody has a harder time, almost no way, of actually stealing it by watching you online. It doesn't have to be long, and then usually it doesn't have to be long because it has its own security reasons. For example, I'm sure you had that many times where you typed in the PIN password wrong multiple times and then it locked your device. Sometimes for a few minutes, sometimes for a day, but it actually protects you. So it has to be in your hand and then has protections to kind of stop you from trying multiple times as well. So an attacker who is sitting somewhere in a coffee shop, let's say in a different country, will have no way to get to your PIN. They will actually have to have the device in your hand, which really changes your risk quite a bit as well. And Alan, at any time, if you want to chime in, let me know or just say something. Now, when we talk about pins, we think about the number we type in, and sometimes it could be also a swipe with a finger, but we also look at biometrics. So finger tap on the phone or face scan on some of the devices. Those are doing the same job as your pin, as your number that you're using. It just sometimes it's a bit faster and more convenient to do that. And then because sometimes they can fail. So very often you may have a wet or greasy finger, or your nails are too long and the system doesn't recognize your fingertip. You may have to have that PIN number available as the background and also as a backup for you. So very often biometrics will be used with your PIN at the same time, and we always suggest that you have both and you save, and make sure that you don't lose that information. So the device PIN and your online password are very different things. Your device PIN just unlocks the device, but doesn't give you access or logins into other things as quickly. Your password unlocks your online accounts, and those are really separate from each other. Changing your PIN does not really change any of your password accounts. I sometimes think of the PIN as the lock on the door that you can sometimes will change the number, but it doesn't mean anything behind the door changes. So your PIN is kind of that door to get you in. But losing your password doesn't expose your email or bank account in the same way, or your PIN. However, if you lose your device, it can generate problems. And very often with multi-factor authentication or that two-stage authentication, that's where you start running into problems as well. So do not use your device and do not lose your PIN. All right. Now, if you're using Microsoft and you have been installing or looking at installing Windows 11, you actually may notice that the system may ask you for both. So if at first it will ask you to sign into your Microsoft account, and then also it will ask you to set up the PIN. They will be two different things. The PIN will unlock device, and Microsoft email and password are separate and used online. However, when you're trying to access or forget your PIN, that combined authentication will be helpful because Microsoft may help you find your PIN or access your PIN again. So that is where what happens with your PIN when you lose it or forget it. Because it is local, there's no server to ask for reset the way we ask for resetting of passwords. It is saved on your device. You cannot receive a code by email. You can really not get help anywhere else besides what you have in your memory or somewhere saved or written down as well. Now, the different devices may have different back ends to actually help you get that PIN. So iPhone or Android devices, you can help you by getting into your Apple, Google accounts. They may be able to kind of reset or get into your device. Windows computers, as I said, they will ask for your PIN when setting up, and through that way, they may help you to recover it. But if you don't do that, then they can't help. And Mac devices also goes through your Apple ID, so that's another way to get into it. But really, the end of the story or the main thing to remember is keep your PIN information secure. Have it written down in a code somewhere, whatever works for you, because again, it's very important, even though we don't think about that in the same way. Okay. And I can see their comments, but I'm going to let Alan speak about Passkeys and I will check the comments in the meantime. Alan, back to you.
Sure, Monica. We can skip on to the next one if you want, Monica.
Perfect. Here we go.
Okay. Um, you may have already seen passkeys. When you log into a website, when you log into a website you already use, perhaps your email or your bank, it'll say, "Would you like to set up a passkey?" And I was very confused about it because often, like the example on the right, they mention both a PIN and a passkey, and I get confused whether they're talking about a PIN or a passkey. You may have been asked to set one up for the first time with a new account. Often, when you're setting up new accounts with new systems, they'll say, "Would you like to set up a passkey at the same time?" Monica, the next screen. So
Absolutely.
what is a passkey? A passkey lets your device prove that it's you without sending the password over the internet. When you create a passkey, and you have to create one, it creates two linked keys. And keys is a very confusing term, but it's two pieces of information. The public key is stored on the website that you're trying to log into. It could be at your bank, be it EOS CAM, something like that. That public key is stored there. The private key stays on your device and it never leaves that device. And if you're setting it up on a single device, it stays on that single device. Each time you log in, The website sends a new unique challenge. So it's the bank, it will send a challenge to your device, and only that device can use its um, private key to answer the question or challenge. So it's a unique question each time with a unique answer that gets sent back to the server. Your device uses the private key to generate the matched response. Because that challenge is different every time, the response is different every time. And it needs both pieces of information to prove that it's you. So nothing is reusable, nothing is sent, that it can be reused, which is why a passkey is so secure. Next slide, Monica.
And just
Yep,
the
sorry, Monica.
question, have you started using Passkeys? So just quick check a question
Oh,
for the
yeah,
chat. Because
sorry,
that's
Monica.
sometimes for many of us, it's actually something new, something we are just getting used to, and better understanding it, it will be important. So some of you are
Yeah.
using it, so great. Okay, sorry, Alan.
Thanks, Monica. I forgot to look at that question. Yeah. Okay. Um, Setting up a passkey does not mean giving up your password. You're still going to have a password on a website, but the passkey is another layer of security. Most websites today offer passkeys alongside existing usernames and password. It's not a replacement for your password. It's just a different way of getting in. Um, you can use whichever works for you at the moment. So in some cases, you may not have that device, so you want to use your password. But if you've got the device, it's easier to use your passkey and more secure. Think of a passkey as a faster, more secure entrance to the same building. The old door still exists. Over time, as passkeys become more common, passwords will gradually fade out, but we're nowhere near that yet. Um, Note that since private keys are stored on your device, losing access to that device can lock you out of your account unless you have a secure backup or a recovery method in place. So if you've got your existing password, that'll still let you in, or if you backed up your passkey information, which is possible as well, that'll let you in. And Monica's made a table there that explains the differences between a passkey and a passwords. But basically, the key one is because you're not sending your password over the internet and your password isn't stored on the Canadian Tire server, there's nothing for a thief to steal. It's only on your device and it requires both keys to operate. Monica, next slide.
Yes.
You may be asked if you want to back up your passkey to Apple or Google or a Microsoft cloud. It simply stores your answer key securely across your devices. So that'll essentially allow you to use your passkey across your laptop, across your desktop, and across your phone because it's stored and synced using those services that provide that service. The cloud provider stores it, but it cannot actually use your passkey. Your PIN is still required, the PIN, which you unlock your phone, your device, your thumbprint, your face scan, is still required to actually use the device to be able to use the passkey. Next slide, Monica. Um, okay, a little note on public and shared computers. Everything we've said about passkey assumes one important thing, that you have a personal device that's yours alone. In a school lab, a library, or a shared computer environment, that assumption doesn't hold. So the advice is different. Do not set up a passkey directly on a shared computer. So in a lab, at the library, something like that, do not set up a passkey. Instead, most modern browsers support something called cross-device sign-in. When you choose to log in with a passkey, the shared computer shows a QR code and you can scan it with your phone. So basically, your phone is acting like you're proving that you are who you are. And the phone handles the entire sign-in and using your PIN or biometrics, and you log into that on the shared computer, but you're not entering your passkey on the shared computer. The key point is the passkey never lives on that shared machine. So you're not giving the library computer or the computer lab computer your passkey. It still is on your phone. It stays on your device and leaves with you when you leave that machine. One rule for any shared computer, always log out completely before you walk away.
Yeah.
Okay, Monica. This is me still. So we've talked about a number of things, and they're all important. And you can't live you can't really operate without unique passwords. You really need that critical step of having a unique password. The next piece is really use a password manager, which allows you to easily work with multi-factor authentication, and it also allows you to easily store long passwords or to use passphrases. And then finally, the passkey is the even better level of security because it doesn't provide anything that can be stolen, but you need to still have those unique passwords. So I'm not saying create a bad short password that you use all over the place and use passkeys because people are going to get in using that short reused password, even if you're using passkeys. So you need to follow all 4 or 5 of these steps if you possibly can.
Right. Thank you, Alan. And then I know this is very quick. We wanted to kind of make sure that we give you as much information as possible, but also have some time for discussions and comments as well. So, Alan, if that's okay, I'm just going to quickly
Sure.
go back to some of the questions because that will allow us to kind of answer them or at least comment and then also participants. So, there was a question, don't viruses go into devices and steal saved passwords, pins, passkeys? Question mark.
They certainly can steal your passwords. So if you're saving your passwords on your browser through your browser, that is a typical way that you can get sort of hacked. I don't know about them save hacking pins or passkeys,
Yeah.
um, but it probably always a good idea to have virus protection on your machine. But I haven't seen anything about pins and passkeys being stolen, particularly with the passkeys it's 2 pieces of information. So the pass key would need to steal both the private and the public key in order to make the system work.
Okay. And the other question, we didn't plan to cover that today, but a question is, what about hardware security keys or security tokens?
They're the same basically as a pin. They're just instead of your fingerprint, you're using a fob or something like that. So it's basically what Monica was talking about a pin. It could be a code, could be your fingerprint, could be your face, could be a key fob that has a certain number on it, or another device that you have to have present. It's all the same thing. It basically is a pin which unlocks the device.
Yeah. But it's on its own. You still have to have that identifier in between. So you have a USB stick, you plug it into the device, you still have to identify that you are the owner of that device. So if somebody finds the stick, they can get in because they are not the owner. They can't identify, provide that PIN or identification to get in. So it's almost like I always have a hard time figuring passkeys, but with Alan's explanation, it's a bit easier for me to think of it as kind of like an extra checkup. So there is a passkeys code on the door, and I'm trying to get in. I have the card with me, but the card has to recognize that it's me before it actually lets me in. So there's different ways happening behind the scenes that we are not seeing as we are using the passkeys. And I think in that comparison to the password, because that doesn't travel through the internet and it's kind of invisible to us, it's a lot harder to figure it out, even for somebody who is kind of standing next to us in a way, if that makes sense. Any other questions? I'm just going to quickly jump in.
Password man about the app, the Google and the Apple password managers. Yeah, I think they're safe. I have used the Google one. And it's different than the Chrome browser password rememberer. It is works with your Chrome browser. If you're using the Google password manager, you really need to use the Google Chrome browser, but it's not the browser saving your password. I would avoid the browser saving your password. And the plugins for the password managers, I use them. I think they're safe. I haven't read anything about the better products, the ones that we've talked about having compromised or being hacked with the password manager plugins yet. You do need to have virus protection and security on your machine as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if I've
But
missed any other questions, Monica.
no, I think we covered them all. If not, please let us know again if we missed anything. I think one of the difficult things for us, and I think we realize this as well, is that we use multiple devices. So with the passkey again, that idea, you how are you going to access it from the phone, from the laptop? And then sometimes, you kind of want to just keep it on one device, but if we lose it, what's our way around to that? So you have to kind of think both ways. Do I have it and how do I protect it in a way, which can be tricky. Are authenticators apps safe? So this is a question from Tiz.
Yeah, basically that's what a password manager would provide you with. They also come with their own authenticator app. And yes, I would say they're safe.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's just,
that's the two-factor authentication. So with two-factor authentication, sometimes they'll send you a text message, sometimes they'll send you an
hello.
email. The email isn't the safest. The text message is a little safer. The authenticator app is a little safer than that. They're not as safe as a passkey because they are still relying on a password which can be hacked. Sarah had a question, I think, earlier, Monica, about
Did I
being
miss it?
uncomfortable
Sorry.
with the
Oh, yes,
master password.
that's right.
Um, I mean, as long as you're not relying too much on the email for the multi-factor authentication, it's probably okay. Not the best. And Catherine's question about a phone being stolen, I actually don't know how that would work exactly, but I can look into it a little more. I'm not sure why the codes would be sent to a different device unless they were sent to an authenticator app rather than the phone number itself. Um, Not quite
I think
sure there.
it's somebody set up, actually basically called the company and switched the phone number to a different device, and then was getting those confirmations on a different device, right? I think that's it. Yeah, it was the phone number that was stolen. So
Oh, the
it
phone
probably,
number, not the
yeah,
phone.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
We are
Yeah.
learning about all those things, right? We sometimes
Yeah.
don't think about that it could even happen.
Well, that would be
Um,
an example. If you're on your phone, you're using an authenticator app rather than relying on the text messages. If they stole your phone number, they wouldn't have the authenticator app. They just have your
mm,
phone number. So
yeah.
that's one reason. Again, emails are very vulnerable to being intercepted with two-factor authentication. There's an example now of how your phone confirmation can be intercepted. The authenticator app is a higher level above because you actually have to have that app on your phone.
Yeah. Yeah, but you see those things all the time. You call the bank and sometimes they want to confirm your identification and they will send you an email or a pin or something to the phone, trying to kind of or code to the phone to get to confirm who you are because it's getting, harder and harder to maintain that security as well. So I think our message for today is really kind of please be open and try and check everything, look at all the options you have. And as passkeys are making their way into our world, it's good to know and understand how they work as well. So that we really appreciate that. Now I'm going to jump into the next slide just to kind of give you a bit of overview of what's coming up next. So of course we have the feedback, and we hope that you will be willing to have a few minutes and share with us if this was helpful. But also we have upcoming events. So I'm going to put this information in the chat for you so you have the links. We have a virtual showcase happening on June 2nd, and that one will be about teaching Get Set financial literacy. I know Jennifer is somewhere here with us. She's one of the presenters, so thank you, Jennifer. We are going to have a PD workshop with Tracy and Guylaine, resources and tools to support creative writing instruction. That's 3 sessions, so June 10th, 17th, 24th, 3:30 to 5 p.m. Again, very, very knowledgeable team, and they really want to engage you and work with you as we are developing our skills. And as Alan mentioned earlier, cybersecurity workshop. So again, this was really 30 minutes, very, very quick. But if you have any questions, Alan is our expert and can help. And even if we don't know the answers, because we sometimes don't know everything, and those things evolve and change over time, we will look it up and then check for you as well. So if you have any cybersecurity questions or would like you and your team to take the cybersecurity training, please contact Alan. Those are on demand, I think, at this point, but we'll see if we can run them more frequently. So all those are the options that are coming up from us. And as always, when we talk about future topics, if there's anything you would like to suggest, if there's anything that will be helpful, you can see that some of our current topics are based on the feedback we received in the past. So we always open and welcome your feedback and suggestions. That's the main thing. So do the feedback form. And with that note, I'm going to kind of close our presentation, but we still have a minute or two if you have any questions. Yes, so there's comments coming in. If you use password manager tool, they often have their own authenticator app. Absolutely, different password tools. At AlphaPlus, Alan, we use Bitwarden, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I just received a notification from Google saying that to increase the security of my Gmail, I can continue with operating system. What does that mean? Um, Alan, I think that will kind of go back to that idea that you can connect your Apple ID or operating system to the account. Is that what I'm thinking?
I'm not sure. I would just ask Sarah. I wasn't quite sure what she meant by continue with OS. Is that
Operating
the Apple
system?
operating system?
I would think so.
Haven't
Okay.
used an Apple in 20 years, so I'm not that familiar. So it's the Apple operating system. Um, Sarah, are they giving you any idea of what they're asking you to do? Because often they ask you to confirm. Um,
Android.
yeah. Um,
It could be a new feature, but if is it and the notification was on the device, on the phone or laptop? Where did the notification come from? This is for Sarah, sorry.
mhm.
On the phone. So the phone is sending a message to connect it to the operating system, which will be Android operating system.
But the question was about increasing the security of my Gmail. Um, and sometimes they're asking you to confirm additional information like a backup phone number or an alternative email address and that kind of thing, and go through that confirmation to confirm your phone number, to confirm another email address other than your Gmail address. I
Mm.
haven't seen anything about increasing the security of Gmail. Um, I wonder if it could mean the app. Like, do you automatically update? I would suggest that if you've got a Gmail app on your phone, you should allow it to automatically update the versions of that app so it stays up to date. It might be possible to just to disable the updates. So it may be telling you that your Gmail app on your phone hasn't been updated and is out of date and needs a security update. But maybe you're in that position where the operating system of your Android phone won't let you take the new version of your um, of the Gmail app. I've had people who've had that with like the New York Times, with Wordle. Like their phone is so old that it won't take the new version of Wordle, and Wordle won't work anymore because they can't get the new app. Their operating system for their phone won't let them update the app. So yeah, you can be in that conundrum.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you, everyone. I know you may have to go. I know some of you are starting your classes. So thank you again for joining us today. Thank you, Alan, for
Yep.
sharing your wisdom. I always learned from you, so I really appreciate that as well. Thank you to all of you joining, participating, and then feel free to reach out if you have any questions. There was a question about contact for the cybersecurity. That's Alan, and it will be alan at alphaplus.ca. We try to make our emails a bit simpler. But I'll include that in the slides so that if you have the access to the slides, you will be able to find that email or that contact for Alan as well. So thank you so much, everyone. We really appreciate you joining us today and join us again in the future sessions.
Thank
Look
you,
forward to seeing you again.
Monica. Thank you, Alan.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.